Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and welcome to my film journey. We're on week 3 of 2026, and it's already been a crazy year outside of the world of movies and television, but I've been very busy in terms of the things that I've been watching and the things I've been picking up. As you probably saw last week, I got a lot of stuff from the last quarter of 2025. I hate that I said it as like I was in a business. Quarter? What the heck? Yeah, I got a lot at the very end of the year into like the early parts of January, and I showcased that. I still actually got a couple of more things to show you that I just got in the mail this week, and a couple different new projects and some movies I have seen before but I've just upgraded. And then also I've just been watching a lot of Polish cinema, and that's kind of where my movie focus has been as of late. Ever since watching Possession, I just got obsessed with deep diving into Polish cinema, like post World War II, and we're going to talk about that today. But regardless, what have you been collecting? Have you been collecting anything fun? Do you have anything that's you're really excited to get coming in the post? I would love to know in the comment section down below. All right, so let's just jump straight into the titles that I picked up for the week. And the first one is actually from the 3 for 33 on the 4Ks that Amazon put out. And I actually still have quite a bit coming. I put in the second order. And so I do still have the Brad Pitt formula. I think it's F2 is what it's called. I don't remember the title, which is saying something, which is a little weird. But regardless, I have some more 3 for 33 titles coming in. But the first one I want to talk about is one from Tim Burton, a classic that I need to reevaluate because I used to not like this. And I'm talking about Corpse Bride. And this is Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, and Helena Bonham Carter, and they're fantastic in this. And it's, like I said, it's been years since I've seen this movie. Tim Burton was hit or miss for me growing up. I really loved the Batman stuff with Michael Keaton, of course. I actually even enjoyed Big Fish about like a decade ago, and I slowly got into his other films in his like Gothic era and things like this, and stop motion animation, and I'm fascinated to rewatch this, and I've actually heard really good things about this 4K transfer, so I'm excited to have this. $11, great deal to get this. Very excited to rewatch this movie. All right, so next is actually from Shout Factory. This is a new line that they put out last year, I believe, is when they started it. I could be off, but it is the Hong Kong Cinema Classics line from Shout Factory, and I've been waiting I want to see what Arrow does. Honestly, I want to kind of collect those, but I did get this one because I've heard really good things about it. It is the 4K of The Killer, and this is in a really nice hardcover box right here. I actually really love the sleek design of this, and it has a bunch of special features. This is a John Woo classic, and I really love this movie. I've only seen it one time, but I am excited to watch it with new eyes, especially when it comes to the 4K. But it comes with a booklet, of course, with special features, and just people writing different essays about the movie itself and showcasing several of the backdrop of the movie itself and showing those pictures. And then there are the 3-disc set right there. There's some new artwork right there of The Killer, with a bunch of special features on there. A lot of new things like new audio commentary, new transfers, of course, and some documentary related things. And so very excited to jump into this and kind of watch it with a new perspective. But has anyone seen this transfer yet? I want to know what your thoughts are on The Killer. Of course, if you've seen this movie, let me know what you think of it. I love this movie. Can't wait to watch things go in slow motion and a lot of explosions happen in the background. All right, so next are some movies that I don't know terribly too much about, so I'm going to be kind of brief on them. But these are some Giallo films that I got, and I've just heard really fantastic things about them from several of my friends, and so I wanted to kind of jump into it myself. The first one is the 4K of The House with Laughing Windows, which is apparently a really fantastic film that a lot of people just have underseen, apparently, and very, very excited for this movie. This came out, I believe, in the 70s, right? 1976 is when this movie came out. Apparently a really fantastic and also chilling type of film. That iconography on that building looks kind of terrifying. This is the first time I've opened this up. Of course, there is a poster right here, which I'm sure put up, maybe, depending on how much I like it. And of course there is the booklet, just like last time. That looks terrifying. It looks a lot like the iconography. Okay, I'm interested in this. This looks fantastic. Just based on the the scenes that I can see from this, but it looks kind of terrifying. But there's the 4K. It comes with 2 discs right here, or this actually 1 disc, my bad, of the 4K and the special features. And yeah, just really excited about this movie. Has anyone seen this one? Has anyone picked this one up yet? All right, next is another Giallo from 1974. This is from Indicator, and I've been sorely missing out on some of their releases as of late, and so I feel bad about that, but at the same time, I've heard nothing but good things about this movie right here. This is The Perfume of the Lady in Black, and what a cover that is. I've heard this is just a phenomenal transfer of a phenomenal Giallo, and so there is the booklet, which might give something away, the director, I believe, and then, of course, there is Indicator's amazing just artwork. I just love how that they set these things up. I actually would love more of things like this. If any company is listening besides Indicator, these are amazing, and this is perfect because it's this little really thin kind of piece of paper cardboard with a plastic disc that holds this, and it showcases the art, like the original poster art of the movie and like the alternative art, and I'm excited for this. But loads of special features on here. There's a giant chunk of a paragraph here. Most of these are actually from 2025, it looks like, so it looks like this has got so much stuff on it, and I'm so excited about this. This is directed by Francesco Borelli, and I'm not, like I said, not too familiar with it, but I've heard really phenomenal things about it, and I am super stoked about this. So when I get in a Giallo mood, which I will be this year, I'll definitely put this one in. All right, so next is from 88 Films, a movie that I've only been told about, or at least I've heard the legend of this movie, and I wanted to jump in on it because apparently a lot of people were talking about it and how mad it is as a film. It is The Cat. So I actually was able to watch The Seventh Curse a few years back when I went over to the UK. I was able to pick up that title from 88 Films. Apparently that's the same director here, and that movie is just wild, and apparently this movie is even more wild. So I'm very excited about this. I passively was talking to one of my friends, and I told him I bought The Cat, and he had mentioned, have you seen it before at all? And I said, no, I haven't. And his response was, you're in for a treat. It's insane. And so I'm very excited about this, to watch The Cat and see what this movie's all about. I've heard this is just a dumb, crazy horror / action movie, so who knows what this is, with wonderful pre-CGI special effects, a lot of rubber glory. Rubber galore is what they said, and some truly bonkers action. Watch out for that, Cat. Part horror, part sci-fi, and all WTF. Very excited about this movie. All right, so this next movie is actually a film that came out, I believe, last year, maybe the year before, because of how distribution works. But this is Chris Stuckman's debut film, and who is somebody that I want to thank for me getting on this space in general, because I definitely was able to watch him early on, and thinking I want to do something along those lines. And so it's really cool to see this come to fruition. I don't really follow Chris that much now, but I really love that he actually was able to put a campaign together and get it produced by Mike Flanagan, and I'm talking about Shelby Oaks, which I actually already watched, and I really enjoyed this debut feature film. And so I picked this up, like I said, this week, but I was able to watch it as well. It's a really interesting found footage film, and I love the trajectory of this film, and there are maybe some simple effects and a few things that are maybe a little mundane, or at least very obvious, that you could see if you've seen films like this. But at the same time, it's very fresh, and it's got a fresh perspective and a fresh face. And I won't say too much about it because I love the way that this movie kind of goes in twists and turns. And so I'll let you kind of decide for yourself. But I definitely would give this, a 3 out of 5 if I was giving a rating of something like this. But it is a fantastic debut. I'm really excited for Chris Stuckman to put out more films like this. And I love horror films all the time, and low budget ones like this are fantastic. And yeah, good job, buddy. And yeah, I definitely would recommend people watch Shelby Oaks. All right, so besides Shelby Oaks, I have a couple of miscellaneous titles that I'll talk about, and then we'll jump into the Polish cinema that I've been watching. But the first one is Wolfman, that came out, I think, last year, maybe the year before. I missed the gate on this one, but the same director of The Invisible Man that came out a few years ago, which I really loved. And actually, this movie I really enjoyed as well, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. I do feel like there's some maybe I don't know how to describe it, but there's a lot of, I guess, vitriol and kind of dislike of this movie for various reasons, and I could see like maybe the plot or the characters kind of being a little surface level, so that would be my qualm. But at the same time, I really enjoy this. This is a fresh perspective, in my opinion, on this tale, which has been told countless times, and I love the modern aesthetics of it and the family dynamic. As much as, you know, you don't really get involved with the family as much, it is kind of cut and dry type of film where, you know, you kind of expect what's going to happen, but at the same time, I enjoyed it. I enjoy the special effects, and I'm really thankful that I finally gave this a try, and this is a movie that I think will actually probably grow on me as I get older, but I got a lot of Wolfman-like films, and so this is another one to add to the collection, in my opinion. I think this is one of the controversial ones where a lot of people are hit or miss with it, but I definitely recommend checking it out. Maybe not buying it, but check it out. And the next movie I have is a little bit of a letdown based on the cast alone of this movie. That is Good Fortune. This is directed by and starring Aziz Ansari, who's got a kind of a questionable past. But we have Keanu Reeves as an angel and Seth Rogen as this rich guy. And this kind of like Freaky Friday swap on turning in. You can see it on the cover itself. He's able to swap them and their lives. You know, Aziz Ansari starts working for Seth Rogen in this movie, and Seth Rogen has to let him go because of an incident with using a company credit card. But you know, Keanu Reeves is an angel, and he normally is a texting and driving angel, so he's really focused on protecting people from that, and he's bored, so he is actually stepping in and trying to change perspective for Aziz Ansari. He's like, well, all these riches won't make everything you want to come to life and to fruition, and they kind of do in this movie, so it's a little weird and a little tone deaf, but also it kind of lacks a little bit of the comedic edge. As much as I love this cast, it also has Keke Palmer and Sandra Oh in it, and I adore Keke Palmer so much, and I was just a little let down by this cast and the premise of this movie. I wish it was a little bit better than it is. Definitely would not recommend picking this one up. You could probably stream it and kind of make your own opinion about it. It kind of fell a little flat for me. And with a cast like this, though, I expected a little bit more. So, you know, Good Fortune, it was an okay fortune for me. All right, so now let's jump into kind of the main topic of this video, and that is Polish cinema and how I've been obsessed with it over the last few weeks. And I'm going to kind of talk about these in like themes and not necessarily like the details of the movies, but I will talk about the details of the movies depending on the movie and what it spoke to me. But I really love this cinema. It's also really hard to watch because of a lot of the historical, context with it, and also just understanding the different, Russian, communist, Western, and all these different perspectives post World War II, the Cold War. There's just so many things going on in the background, and the censors that are in Poland, in and out, and just the overall arching things that have just been going on during the time periods that a lot of these movies were made. But it all started with this little film called Possession, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago. I got this giant box set right here, which I can't show you that other side. I think I showed a little too much, but I really love this film, and I've seen it several times now, and it is certainly a challenging art house horror piece, and not for everybody, but it's certainly for me. Andrzej Żuławski, I think is how you say his name correctly, but I was able to deep dive into this entire box set, and it actually has a really cool booklet that's around 220-ish pages right here, and I was able to read this entire thing after watching this and watching all the special features, and I learned so much more about the background of his influences, the different directors, that were working with him, the collaborators he was with, Isabelle Adjani and Sam Neill, and just kind of the perspective of Żuławski, who is kind of an outsider in Polish cinema, as he kind of grew up in France, or at least was able to escape a lot of the horrors of Poland with utilizing some of his perspective outside of Poland, right? And so watching Possession, I wanted to watch more of Andrzej Żuławski's films, and I have this box set right here, this 3 films from Eureka right here, of some of his earlier works, which I was really fascinated by. The third part of the night is this debut, I believe his debut film. Could be wrong. That could be his second film. The Devil and On the Silver Globe. And holy moly, these movies are insane in various ways. Of different, let's see, I think I got it stuck because I read the booklet, and the booklet doesn't fit now because it's frayed. But the booklet is really cool, gives you some really great context. I want to talk a little bit about the third part of the night and The Devil, which are the first two films in here. These came out in the early 70s, 1971 and 1972, and I believe these were both kind of censored by the Polish government and also weren't shown for several years because of how outrageous these movies were. The first one is The Third Part of the Night, which is like a semi-autobiographical film, but also has some flights of fancy and some horror of this post-war era, or at least the Polish kind of side of it. And it showcases, the terrors of the Nazis occupying Poland. And apparently, I think Andrzej's dad was actually one of the people who was trying to fight this, and he was a scientist, I believe, in this time period, and was using like leeches to get rid of some diseases. It's fairly strange. It's a little cold of a film, and it goes all over the place. I don't know if I recommend it, but it is definitely a tough watch. But the second film, The Devil, is a very interesting and very vivid imagination from a director that I feel like could only make Possession, right? So watching this back in time, I can see the trajectory of where he would get to where he is in Possession. And this movie is mad. It, like the name suggests, it's about this character, the devil, that kind of takes over in the 17th century in Poland in a Prussian invasion, and it was banned for 16 years, and it's a crazy film. It goes all over the place. It feels like one of those movies where it meanders a lot and kind of goes around, and various things are happening in the background, and there's a lot of horror and a lot of debauchery happening, and it is very strange and very tough to sit through. So I would say, of the three films here, it is probably the toughest to watch. However, there are some themes in here that I find fascinating, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. But the true treat of this box set, and honestly could probably get its own thing because of how groundbreaking this movie is On the Silver Globe. Man, oh man, is this movie a masterpiece on so many levels. Apparently this movie has a crazy history because he was 80% done with this movie until the Polish government ordered the production to shut down. And this happened in the early 70s, I believe 1972, maybe? But it came out in the 80s, in 1988, at the very end of the Cold War, and the Berlin Wall fell, and this was actually finally shown. But what's so crazy about this movie is it was right around the time of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and a lot of I guess sci-fi was happening at the time. But there was a really interesting perspective with this particular film, and with Tarkovsky and Kubrick, and you can see kind of those elements in here, but also at the same time Żuławski's own kind of mad vision of a post-apocalyptic world. Apparently this is actually based on a story that his great-grandfather wrote. I think great-grandfather Jerzy, I can't say his name correctly, but yeah, this is a crazy vivid and beautiful and also savage looking film. I highly recommend watching this movie. It's hard to describe because it's something you kind of just have to watch and kind of vividly express. And it is one of those movies that'll get under your skin in a good way, in my opinion. But it is a movie that is a masterpiece, in my opinion, and it looks great. This is a great vision from Eureka, restoring this, or at least with I think a 2K master or maybe a 1080p HD transfer. But it has some really cool, special features on here too. I was able to watch and read all of the special features on this disc. But of all the films that I recommend from Żuławski, On the Silver Globe and Possession are the two. This movie is so good, and I can't wait to rewatch this movie. And honestly, it's making me want to watch Tarkovsky, which, fun fact, I've only seen one Tarkovsky film. So that could be a potential new route I go. But as I was going through Andrzej Żuławski's kind of cinema and reading about a lot of the stuff that he was doing, it got me interested in some of the past work from Polish cinema, at least right past World War II, and focusing on that time period. And I thought about another box set that I had right here, this war trilogy from Second Run with Andrzej Wajda, his films. And this is a Polish director who is incredibly well respected and well renowned. And there's actually a film in here, Ashes and Diamonds, which is the third in this particular box set, that's actually out on Criterion as well. So it has a solo release, but this has 3 films, which is loosely connected with this, post World War II, different time periods in World War II. But it's 3 films by Andrzej Wajda, and this is A Generation, Canal, and Ashes and Diamonds. So let's talk about this. Another great box set, and this one, honestly, I kind of like more than the Żuławski box set, although On the Silver Globe kind of eclipses all the other ones. But all right, so let's talk about that first film. We're talking about A Generation, which is about the Nazi occupation of Warsaw that happened during World War II and a little bit after, of course, as well. This is a coming-of-age story of the youth that are trying to revolt and challenge the status quo that's happening in here. And it's weird because it's interesting looking at Wajda and a lot of his filmography, because there is a communist bent towards it, and there's definitely some state control to it. There's also a little bit of expressive freedom that he had on his end too. It's this weird time period that happened in the Polish history that I find really fascinating, because it's something where it's like it could be viewed as propaganda, but at the same time can be viewed as something heroic and triumphant for the Polish people. So it's this weird combination of both. And but yeah, A Generation is a really good example of that. This is one of his first films, and this is actually his debut. And it is a fantastic debut, and I really, really love this. It actually even has a young Roman Polanski in here, who, not a great guy, but it has a lot of familiar faces in, a lot of the Polish cinema that you would recognize. But fantastic film. Generation is a great debut feature, and one of the best debut features I've seen in a long time. And now I want to jump to the film that I absolutely love, and it actually might be my favorite of the set, which might surprise you. But this movie came out in 1957, which is one of the best film years ever, in my opinion, and that is Canal, which translates to sewer, which is not a great title, but it is a really claustrophobic film, very similar to A Generation, where we were talking about the last days of the Nazi occupation in here, of ravaged bands of resistance. And this resistance is actually what makes this so fascinating to me, is how intimate this movie is, in how it gets to know its characters. And even though the outcome is not as exciting as, or not exciting, it's a little bleak, the outcome here, it is still incredibly inspiring, and it reminds me of some like noirs. Also reminds me of like The Third Man and things along those lines. And I adore the cinematography in this particular film, and the performances in here feel very, very lived in and felt very, very vivid and real. And there's a lot of really great sequences of these resistance fighters who are crawling through the sewer, the canal, and trying to escape, and have been cornered more or less into the sewers. And it ends on this incredibly sad note, but at the same time is well worth the watch and is a classic in my book. And honestly, I can't wait to rewatch this movie again. Obviously, it's a hard watch because of how tough the subject material is, but it is a fantastic one. I recommend Canal so much. And then the last movie is the most famous from Wajda, and that is Ashes and Diamonds right here, which is another tragic World War II movie of a Polish resistance fighter commanded to assassinate a Russian communist official who was a comrade during World War II, during the Nazi occupation. And we also have this James Dean-like character right here, who I'm going to butcher his name really, really bad, but Sobolewski is an iconic performance from this character, who has these rose-tinted glasses and is this really cool smoking, like he's always smoking. He's got this jean jacket and also some jeans on, which apparently they didn't have during that time period. So he definitely put his own like stamp on this movie. James Dean was really big at the time in America, so I think there was a little bit of influence there. But what's really cool about this is how violent this movie is, but also at the same time how cool and like how well paced this movie is and how well shot it is. You know, going back to Canal a little bit, I could already tell that the cinematography and his, I guess, Vaida's like eye for like what to pay attention to is terrific. And this is an even like a better example of that. It's not personally my favorite of that. I like Canal a little bit more, but I think this is more important in so many ways because of the perspective of, you know, this guy who is, you know, double crossing somebody who was his friend and going through that whole journey. It's violent. It's also really interesting. It almost feels like somebody's coming of age story in a way, especially transitioning from a time period that felt really turbulent and something that he wanted to be a part of to something a little calmer, but also trying to escape this life. And there's some really creative and vivid images for various things in the background. There's a really famous scene, of course, you can probably see right here, of a fallen statue of Jesus while they're talking in the ruins, and it's amazing. This is an amazing film that has incredible dialogue and incredible depth with the characters that it entails, and I really love this movie. And of all of the Polish cinema that I've seen, this Vaida set is definitely the one I would recommend checking out if you're interested in Polish cinema. These are just some fantastic movies right here that I think everyone should check out. So watching the Vaida films, I wanted to deep dive into more of my Polish cinema that I hadn't seen on my shelf. And I actually have the early cinema of Krzysztof Kieślowski that I'll be watching very shortly. But the next project I did was from a kind of lesser known director, Piotr Shulkin, I think is how you say his name. This is the End of Civilization trilogy from Radiance. I believe there's actually 4 films that are supposed to be connected to this. Golem, which is not included in this collection, which is unfortunate. I'll have to watch that one. But it came out previously to this. But these are movies that came out, I believe, in the late 70s and like mid 80s. And it's really fascinating kind of reading up on this director and kind of seeing the worlds that he would craft. A lot of these are sci-fi dystopian types of, state, and so like there's some socio-political things going on in these movies that are really fascinating. But the first one is War of the Worlds, which is loosely based on the H.G. Wells story, of course, where Martians come down. But this has a lot more of a state control kind of Polish side to it that feels very meandering and very crazy, but it's following this guy who is actually on this alternate cover right here, who is actually this TV spokesperson who is kind of martyred in a way, or at least he utilizes his power, kind of state controlling other people, and it backfires on him, and it showcases that kind of side of it. But this is a really fascinating movie. It's definitely really strange and not something I would recommend easily for a lot of people, but this was something that I find really fascinating and kind of got me more interested into other films from him. And so the second one actually it felt like a real dystopian film, drenched in blue, felt very or maybe a little bit post Blade Runner. And this movie is Obi Oba right here, and this movie has an incredible art piece right here that I really love. I love the commissioned artwork that this director utilized. You can see that blue right there. This is about a post-nuclear war occupation, or at least spot where people live in this dome because all the nuclear weapons had gone off, and this, I guess, culture that are all together are fighting over resources, kind of very controlled by, the people who control those resources. And so there's a lot of that state censorship going on in here. But this movie is really cold, but like in a way that is very imaginative and also really evocative of what's going on in the imagery of this movie. This is probably the most fascinating film of these. In my opinion, I think might be his best movie. But this is a movie that is also really hard to watch as well. Just like War of the Worlds, a little less on the chaotic side, in my opinion, to War of the Worlds. But this movie is a cold one. Obi Oba which is a hilarious title in a weird way. The End of Civilization is the alternate title. Is definitely the one to check out of this particular trilogy. And then the final film right here is one that has this weird black comedy kind of side to it. Also kind of jumps in a little bit like Blade Runner in a way, but this one is Gaga. And another funny one, A Glory to the Heroes, which is a really weird sci-fi film about an astronaut who comes down to this planet that's a lot like ours, and they celebrate heroes, but in the weirdest of ways. It's like a cult of personality kind of thing, where they kind of celebrate heroes by giving them prostitutes, their flowers, accommodation, food, but also they're going to martyr them and put them on a nice pole that is definitely reminiscent of a cross, right? So there's some allegory here going on, but it is a fascinating film. There's some weird themes in here. This weird love story that I don't necessarily love in here, but it also is like the heart of the movie. So it's strange. But this is a fun one of the three, in my opinion, and is also batshit crazy and is very lunatic. Lunatic asylum is what I would call this movie. But I definitely would not recommend this for people who are not interested in these types of themes. So it's definitely a tough sell. But like I said, I'm going to be watching a lot more Polish cinema. I'm going to be watching that early conflict films from Krzysztof Kieślowski, and I want to jump more into these types of directors. And I'm just fascinated by this entire time period of censorship, state propaganda, and also just it kind of bleeds into a little bit of today, unfortunately, with what's going on in the States. But with that being said, I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my pickups, my little deep dive into some Polish cinema. Hopefully it gets you interested. At least if I interest you in any of those films, definitely check out Vida. He has a lot of really fantastic movies. And yeah, I'm excited to dive more into some cinema and some TV that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on down the line. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoy it. Give it a like, comment down below, share, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not Jones.